What's up, everyone? Today there's a Stihl FS40C on here, and I know this much about it. Two things. One, I bought it about 20 minutes ago. Guy messaged me. I messaged him about 2 days ago. Said he wanted 80 bucks. I said take 40. Never answered. Messaged me back. If you can be here in an hour, you can have it. And I looked. I was about 10 minutes away. So 10 minutes and 29 seconds later, I was there. So now we have it. The dude told me his dad had it and he got it running momentarily, but that was a long time ago and he doesn't know exactly what's going on. He did say it was dry when he got it, and he put Red Armor mixed fuel in it, so that's good. We know at least that's fine. I didn't check the oil or the fuel. He said it was within the last week, so meh. We don't know how old the fuel was in the can, though. That could be a problem. But other than that, I don't know of anything else about it. This is the definition of a homeowner's version of a Stihl, that is for sure. So it's not the most expensive thing in the world, but it's in very good condition. It's not faded. It's not even dirty. The head barely even has any grass on it. Even the primer bulb is still clear. So this is definitely a nice little buy for 40 bucks. So I think I'll put you over here and we'll see what's going on. First things first, we're gonna check the fuel. There's pressure in the tank. That's usually good. The fuel looks excellent. I think he was right. It does have good fuel in it. Do a primer bulb. See if it even primes. It primes. Not a whole, that's not filling up all the way, but that's not bad at all. Is this choke already? Yeah, it wasn't choke. Okay. Well, let's do it. This does not want to handle pressed. Okay. It has one of those switches where it just automatically goes back to on. So let's try full throttle. Let me do a little thinking of what I want to do next. Here we go. So here we have a high and a low adjustment hole. This is what they call a splined adjustment tool. If you go on eBay, Amazon, Google, Bing, if you're that person, and just type in 2-cycle adjustment screwdriver or adjustment screwdrivers, you'll usually get a pack, like 8 or something, I think. And just find the one that you need. Or you can be barbaric about it. Take the cover off, take a Dremel and put a slot in there. You can just use a flathead screwdriver, whatever you want. I don't really like doing that. Not to say I haven't done that, but not my forte. So now, let's see. It seemed a tad rich, but we did also have on choke. I pulled it a few times, so let's just barely turn this thing. Now the high, we do need to adjust, except I want to adjust it out. We need more fuel. So I turned about a quarter turn. Let us go back up onto the stand and we'll see what we can do. So you're probably not going to see a whole lot of this in detail. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to get it started. What an idle. Then I'm going to tune the idle to where I like it. If it's too slow, a normal flathead screwdriver, or excuse me, Phillips head screwdriver is what you're going to use down there. Tightening it makes it run faster, loosening it makes it run slower. Pretty simple. After I do the idle, which is the low, I'm going to work my way up to the high. If it's running pretty good, I might just stop. If it needs a little adjustment, well, I might have to continue. When you do this, technically you're going to want a full head of line, but this came with this little, these little cutters. I'm not a fan of this, to be honest, so I'm going to leave them off. I have an extra head off a different weed eater that I will put on later, so I might have to fine tune this at a different point in time, but no, you should be doing this with a full head of line, and the line needs to be out too, like exactly as if you're going to be using it. So when I do the high is really the tricky part, and the low to a certain point too. You're going to want to dial it in until it starts to die, which means you want to tighten it. Once it starts to die, you want to loosen it, and once you're loosening it, you want to hear the engine just scream. And once the engine is at the max RPM, keep going just a little bit until you hear an obvious change in RPM. You want it to be a little rich, just a little bit. Air filter should be on. It should have been warmed up a little bit beforehand too. Those are two important things. The air filter will provide a little additional resistance, so you want to tune it and how it's going to be used. You're not going to be using it without the air filter on. At that moment in time, I'm going to let the engine go back to idle, and if I notice any puffing of smoke, or if it's just a really rough idle, I will then adjust the idle one more time, and just to make sure, I will rev it up one more time. If it's still screaming, I'll richen it up a little bit more, continue from there. The reasoning for that is if you lean out the idle a little bit more, with full throttle, you're going to be leaning out the total mixture, and you want to kind of put it back where it needs to be, because the low works with the high. Keep that in mind. So this is just a solution, I hope, for this machine. At the end, stick around and I'll tell you additional items if this was not going to work that we're going to need to do. Let's try no choke. That obviously wasn't the greatest, so let's lean it in a little bit. Okay, let's richen it. Go about half a turn, because I will put probably about a third of a turn before. Turn on choke. Okay, 1 second, I need to do this. Now it's not wanting to work at all. Now is it? Let us push the idle screw in a little bit. That usually helps us during this process. Make sure that we didn't lose any fuel in the carb. Make sure it's still primed. Looks like it is, so that shouldn't be a problem. Choke it. Definitely not quite there yet. Do a little bit more. Still Still's having a hard time. We very well might have to clean this carb. But it's getting better. We are so close. It's not really puffing black smoke, so, or excuse me, just any smoke. It's almost all the way in now. Let's try this. I don't like that one bit. Let's leave it where it was. I'm gonna mess with this a little bit more. Yeah, no matter what I do, it doesn't want to work. Also, I was wrong. It was the hexagon tool, not this blind. So, let's take a look, shall we? Yep. Looks like it was brand new. Okay. Let's open this up. Okay, the tank, like that, we can remove the fuel line, which I'm sure is pretty much brand new. Just slides right off. And it is. And we also need to remove the choke, excuse me, the throttle. So we need to push this down. There we go. Now, the other fuel line, I believe it's the return line, can come off. That one's not nearly as convenient or as cooperative. Maybe we'll go through the primer bulb hole. Oh yeah, That's money right there. Maybe not. Don't really want to twist on this because it's just a plastic barb. That'll be a quick way to have a bad day. There we go. Off to the cleaners. So I guess I won't save this for the end, but one of the other options this could be, well, could very well be a spark arrestor that's plugged. It's on the exhaust. It's a little screen. This one, this particular model, it's very easy to see into, and I can look. It's pretty much clear, so that's not a problem. Obviously, a lack of tune, old fuel, and if you've checked all those and you're about to do what we're going to do right now and it still isn't running, you could have a seal, a crank seal going out. But those are usually not very common. I would say this is going to be like 90% of the problems just right here. It's just the carb. The nature of these machines. Well, excuse me, not the machines. What we put into the machines. Ethanol fuels are not the greatest. Luckily around here, it's not super hard to get to. It's about a 20-minute drive for me. I want to say like 3 or 4 within that time frame, so. But it is a lot more expensive, so there's that. That is not even beginning to be hard. We'll just clean that or use that over again. Something to look at as well is, do we have a good and operational fuel pump? That's going to be on this side. I have a feeling the fuel in here was not the same quality as what's in the tank. So it definitely has a stench to it. Well, that looks clean. I'm not going to continue too much farther with that. Since we're going to go above and beyond, let's just take these out. We're going to retune it anyway, so we're just going to say 1 and 1 in each. Now when you do this, I want to make sure if they're different, you put them in the right order. So that one's like on, I think that's the low side. Yeah, it would have to be the low side. The throttle's right there. What I mean by that is that this is a choke. The throttle is going to be touching the intake of the motor, and the low is always the closest one to the motor. Wow. This one really does not want to play well today. This can't have that many threads. If it does, that'd be ridiculous. Okay, fine. Needle nose. Where are you? Here we go. Ridiculous, I tell you. Here we go. Let's take a look. So the high has a significantly less amount of threads on it, and it's a lot shorter. Well, not a lot. A lot in comparison. not gonna bother with that. Of course, this has like the world's smallest T-bit. So we can't just make it so it's easy for us to work on it. We have to have all kinds of special tools. The T number is the lucky one today. T8. There it is. Excuse me. Does not have a removable jet, I think. I mean, the screen looks clean. 2 or 3 minutes in ultrasonic cleaner. I would not recommend using carb cleaner, because in here there's a couple rubber bits that can ruin it pretty fast. So if you don't have a good compressed air spraying, probably would be sufficient for something like this. If not, you would have to take a risk and know you probably had to buy a new one. And here we are. I mean, it wasn't dirty to begin with, but you never know. Let's put on the pumper side first. Uh-oh. Now, when we look at this, we want to make sure these little flaps are not bent. They appear to be flat, so I'm not concerned about that at all. I can say is that I screwed that in pretty far and still is having a hard time, so I definitely had a problem here. Very well might be a seal. Wouldn't surprise me. They're not that hard though. Okay, this is the real pain part. I like to take this and the pin, put that through, then we take the needle, kind of put it all right there. Should all be clean. This is the real tricky part, is this little spring has to fit in there. Little home it has. It doesn't really like to do that very often, at least not very easily sometimes. So let's just very gently, of course, the tool that got it done was also the one that knocked it over. There we go. Now this little dent on the bottom is what you want on the spring. If you don't get it on the spring, then it's useless. It'll be flooding constantly. Or I guess the other extreme could happen, just have no fuel. Maybe the spring is jammed, shoving the needle down. There we go. We take the small little screw that's there to retain. I didn't realize these were magnetic until right now. Okay, let's try. There we go. Perfect. Now to test it, press down. Does it return? It does. Perfect. Now, if you had a flooding problem, you'd want to look at the angle. Like right here, you want to make sure this is correct, but we didn't have a flooding problem, so we don't have to worry about that. Now this has sit a little bit. Yeah, that's of no concern to me. According to the gasket witness mark, we are supposed to put it like this. Okay, now I have to remember. It goes like this, I believe. Yes. And because this primer bulb is practically new still, I'm still going to use it. Make sure everything's still lined up. Something that can be a real pain is this little white piece. Can get clogged with junk, and it can cause some problems. It's kind of difficult to repair that. This isn't the right angle. There we go. And usually you can tell by if the primer bulb doesn't fill up, or the primer bulb gets really pressure filled. It's probably a problem in there. And technically, you really don't even need it, because it can run without it. It's just going to be pulling on forever. Did I get these switched? No. That's the high. Maybe it just needs to be pressed in there a little bit more. Oh yeah, that's what happened. It needs to be pressed in a little bit more. So, there we go. Okay, so here's the writing. Let's do 1 1/4. Okay, here's the writing. 1 1/4. Okay, put it on and see what happens. It's all put together, and we should be set to continue. I can already tell you I pressed the primer bulb maybe 3-4 times, and it's almost all the way full. It's usually a better sign that the fuel is moving a lot better through the carb. So let's see how much tuning we have to do. Same thing as before, nothing special, except this time, after I pick it up, I will be using the correct adjusting screw driver. Let's do this. We have it on choke. I remember I'm supposed to be tightening it. Let's start this over. Let's do this only one turnout. Sometimes they actually have a number on it, like 3/4 turn or something. This one doesn't. Let's see if it starts better now. Okay, there you have it. So like I said, I need to get a new head, and I did a little reconnaissance. I do not have one, unfortunately not. I mean, I do, but it's not off of Stihl, and it looks kind of nasty, so I'm not going to bother. New ones aren't that expensive anyway, especially for this, so I'm not going to worry too much about it at that point in time, and retune it to make sure that the load is fine. Other than that, it seems to idle well. It seems to rev up just fine. Truly, you should test this with a little bit of usage, but like I said, a little bit of fine-tuning is going to be done at the end. Basically what you saw before. If it bogs down, you know, depending on how it's bogging, because the bogging can be too rich. If you see a lot of smoke coming out, that's too rich. That's why it's bogging. If it's bogging, you don't see hardly anything coming out or nothing out of the muffler or the exhaust, could be too lean, riching it up a little bit. So, you know, keep that in mind. But other than that, this is a Stihl FS40C. Seems to be running good. Let's give it another pull just to make sure. I'm happy with that. Okay. Well, if you like what you see, keep watching, subscribe. If you have any questions, leave a comment below, and I'll catch you on the next one. Follow me on Small Engine 101 on Instagram, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good night.